New business, GASB 7475 OPEB, summary of results. We have some
Thank
news.
you. I do. I have a little presentation that will bore you to death. This is our other post-employment benefits, or otherwise known as OPEB. This evaluation gets done every year, and they look at a number of factors, which I'll go through in the presentation. Let me see if I can run my slideshow here properly. Apparently not. Okay, one moment. We're having technical difficulties. Okay, here we go. This is the way our total liability looks at the moment and what it's been since 2017. You can see since 2017, at 2017, our liability was $25.6 million, climbing up in 2020 to $33 million. This represented the increasing cost primarily of healthcare and the increases in Medicare costs until we got to the peak in 2020. In 2020, the impact of the cuts that were made previously started to impact our OPEB liability. Consequently, in 2021, our liability dropped from $33 million to $31.4 million as a result of the headcount reduction. But here's the most important and intriguing part that I'm rather pleased with. From 21 to 22, we dropped $4.3 million, which was a couple of changes. Some questions from Julie to the retirement board about some of the calculations that we had. And also, we had started to look at our healthcare costs, and we made a change in healthcare purchasing. Consequently, without changing the plan to our employees, by the way, most important to remember, that was calculated into the numbers, and that dropped us $4.3 million. In the second year of 2023, the continuing reduction of our healthcare costs, showing that the change that we made was long-term, was calculated back in. In addition, our auditors this year, represented by Markham & Company, which was Zach Fentros, who you met at a previous meeting, questioned how they were determining the algorithm for our retirement benefits. So those two things combined dropped our liability another $4.8 million. This is rather significant. I want to thank Markham & Company, our auditors. I want to particularly thank Julie Hebert, who did most of the heavy lifting on this project of citing some areas where we could make changes and make sure that we were treated fairly in the way that this was being applied. I don't want to declare, victory. This is going to be an ongoing process, and an awful lot of factors to go into the calculation of what our long-term OPEB liability is. So the key drivers here are the premiums for people who are past 65 for Medicare plans, the age that people retire, and how long they'll be retired, and how long they'll live. Police officers, public safety retires a little earlier than the town side, or teachers. And some teachers, and particularly teachers, will reach a combination of age and years of service that would allow them to retire before the age of 65. Consequently, that changes how our calculation for OPEB is calculated. And obviously, if, as I do, I have a spouse in the plan, if I add a spouse or another one, then that will change the calculation. Medical care cost inflation is calculated in about 3.3% per year. So that's a part of the calculation as well. They watch that. These are not really within our control. They also look at any change that we would make in the potential of our retiree benefit for medical coverage, which would be the split that we have, which right now is 50-50. Retired teachers are at 90-10. That actually weirdly doesn't affect the teachers. Retired teachers does not affect our OPEB liability. The current and future benefit payments, so they look at how many people are here, how old are they, how long could they possibly work, how long could they possibly live. So those things are calculated in here. They use a discount rate, or if you will, the interest rate of 5.94%. we know that interest rates are climbing. Consequently, we recognize that our liability may climb because of the cost of money. They also calculate in what we have right now in the OPEB fund, which is approximately $630,000. If we were to increase that, that would positively affect our debt. And what we project for a funding policy. We've discussed with the board at many occasions in the past how we think that we'll sink this over the long run, assuming that we're able to deliver on that plan in a few years, then that will affect our ongoing liability. It's my goal that we should be able to be out of this payment by 2040. Once the fund is fully funded, we would be able to draw against it. So that would have benefits for those people running our budget past 2040. Also, they look at our financial stability, which certainly has improved dramatically. So I'm expecting that to have some positive effects as we go forward in time. We may be offset if interest rates go up, if medical costs continue to be inflated beyond the 3.3 that they calculated, things outside of our control, we will see that number go back up again.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me, I guess. If I think ahead over the next year or two, that liability may climb a little bit.
We have a couple of things coming up in our plan. We're going to change our Medicare Advantage plan for retirees. That will cost a little less, but hopefully bring greater value to our retirees. That would have an effect in the positive against our OPEB liability. The most important thing that Julie points out to me, and will reiterate for clarification, is that this is a reserve that we're building of our money. Consequently, when we reach a certain point, we can withdraw and use that money. So you can actually withdraw it at any time. It would just push off the date at which you are fully funded. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Thank you. The number of retirees and spouses, this is their projection of the number of people who will be on our plan. So this is predicated on assuming that everybody who works for the town today will continue to work for the town until they retire, and that they will be retired and live a long and fruitful life thereafter, much beyond the expectations that I probably will not live that long. So this is fully funding it. The numbers that they assign to you here are predicated on the best case scenario. Everybody stays at work, everybody retires from here, and everybody lives forever. Actually, to the longest point that actuarial statements can do. Where do we see the OPEB liability going? Only up. If we get fully funded by 2040, which is the goal, then some of this money, of course, will be taken from the OPEB trust. We will not have to cough this up. It's most important to note that as you go from 2023 to 2053, obviously inflation, which they're calculating at about an average of 4%, 4.19 if I recall correctly, that's predicated on the value of money in 2053. So $60 million would be present value about 22 million. Today, if I had that kind of money, we'd put it right there and that liability would go away. So consequently, we see this as an imperative nature to get this done and to fund it. We do believe that we have presented a plan to you in the past that will allow us to do that. I think we're moving in the right direction, assuming that the givens, if you will, stay reasonably consistent. Interest rates going back to a little more normal level. I don't think we'll ever get back to where they were pre-pandemic, but I think that we'll get down from the current 8% now. At least I'm hoping we will. And I think that cost of healthcare, being mindful of the cost of our healthcare plans and competitively marking it and always looking for the greatest value for the dollar spent for our employees, that's something that we're always going to be doing. Consequently, this number will be reflective of those things, that some of which are in our control and some of which are not.
I think everybody involved needs to be congratulated on that attention to detail that has resulted in such improvements over the last 2 years, driving that liability down.
Well,
And certainly we have to think about this in the long run. We've got to take care of the Norfolk side of things first, but that, will provide us an ability to really attack this more successfully, more completely than the 50,000 or 100,000 a year we might want to set aside right now.
yeah, I want to thank the board for paying attention to it. This is a hard concept. OPEB was designed for essentially companies that go out of business, and asking under the Gatsby rules to fund your liability for the future before something happens to your company. And we all have lived here in Massachusetts. The big culprit was Polaroid. Nationally, it was General Motors. Those are the things that that affected us. The town is unlikely to go out of business. We've been here since 1905, and certainly many communities much longer. The pay-as-you-go approach wasn't wrong. Unfortunately, that's not an option under the current accounting principle, and that's okay too, because once we do catch up this liability, we will have that fund of money that we put aside. We'll be able to take it back into the budget. We'll create some additional room. But unfortunately, it's probably 2040 before we get there.
Any questions, Ms. Clark?
No questions, just thank you. Thank you both, Julie and Brian, this is fabulous.
This is
Yeah.
the brainchild here.
Yeah, I mean,
Thank you
but
very
the,
much.
I'm going to add in a thank you to Janet Janelle for, as much as I worked on this, she worked incredibly hard to get all of the information. She's been working with us on the health insurance to try to make sure we get the best deal we can. And she's done a lot of forecasting work with me, so I don't want to take all the credit. Janet has done a lot in this too.
Well, give her our thanks as
I
well.
will.
yeah, please. Okay.